Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alyssa Joe, and it was just Christmas, so I hope all of you had an amazing Christmas. I know I sure did, spending time with family and friends. And so when I was looking at some stories for today's episode, there's some kind of cool stories that happened over Christmas that I would like to share with you. The first one being that there was a brand new baby born on Christmas morning, which I'm sure there was a few, but the help from some officers actually entered a new baby boy into the world just alongside the New Hampshire interstate. So on Interstate 93, two soon-to-be parents were panicking. Their baby boy was coming, and two officers actually helped bring baby boy Dominic into the world. The parents are super grateful for the officers' help to be able to do that, bring their baby boy safely into the world on the side of the interstate. Pretty crazy. Talk about a very eventful Christmas, but luckily these brand new parents had the officers to help them out. There was another miracle on Christmas, or right before Christmas. The quick action of a U.S. postman in the small city of Osawatomie, Kansas, saved Christmas for some people in a certain way. So he was out for delivery when suddenly he smelled and saw smoke coming from his mail truck. So he pulled to the side and realized that it was just completely out of control. There was nothing that he could do to completely stop the fire. So he sprung to action and he started rescuing the packages, because most of the packages were all Amazon packages or from other companies and stuff, a lot of presents obviously. And front of the mail truck was fully engulfed in flames when the fire department arrived. But this postman had removed all of the packages before anything was damaged. So all the packages were saved. He put them on the side of the road away from the truck before the fire department arrived. But the fire department did exclaim that the mailman saved Christmas. Talk about quick action and caring for others, right? Because I know there's a lot of people that would have just got up and ran if your vehicle is engulfed in flames, especially. But what a cool way to save Christmas for, I'm sure, a lot of families. That was just before Christmas, so just in time. A Grandfather of the Year award is going to a man from Oregon. His name is Doug Hayes. I thought this story was so cool. So he recently surprised his 10 grandkids with the best Christmas gift that he could ever do. So let me give you a little bit of a background story. So his 10 grandkids go to a relatively small Catholic school in Gladstone, Oregon. And it is a really small school, and they've never had access to a bus system that could actually take them to class. So their grandfather of the year, he actually bought a school bus so he could take them to school every single day. He likes to call it the Grandfather Express. He added that it took him about a month to find an appropriate school bus for sale, but he did purchase the vehicle, and then he even put safety belts installed on all of the seats of the school bus. So it's definitely an awesome surprise for his grandchildren, and he was actually just thinking of a way that he could spend more time with his 10 grandchildren, and I guess buying a school bus and driving them to school every day is definitely a way to spend time with your grandbabies, don't get me wrong. But yeah, so now every single day he's going to be taking his 10 grandchildren to the school so they don't have to find other transportation. I think they were walking or trying to figure out other ways. But yeah, leave it to Grandfather of the Year, Doug Hayes, to pull through by a school bus. What a cool Christmas present. And I know since Christmas is over, we're starting to recycle everything, put all of our ornaments away. We're rewinding, there's a bunch of leftovers to eat. Maybe you have like some more visiting to do with family and friends. There's presents to play with or get set up or whatever the case may be. Christmas is over now, but there's still the aftermath of Christmas. There's still lots of work to be done. I know I love setting up all my Christmas decorations, but I absolutely hate taking my Christmas decorations down. I think it's annoying, and there's a lot of like things that we don't even know what to do with, like our Christmas tree. So I was reading a little story about the things that we can do to recycle our Christmas tree in a proper way. There's so many people who are going to be taking down their trees within the next even few days. I don't know. It depends. I guess some people keep up their tree for quite some time, but 25 to 30 million Christmas trees are sold every year in North America. Most of these Christmas trees do just get tossed in the landfill. But there are other options that have a more impact on local ecosystems and neighborhoods that are just way better for the environment, than just tossing them in a landfill or just like distributing them in like a certain way, right? But, Virginia Beach over the past few years, some locals have brought their trees down to Chicho's, which is a local restaurant, and they utilize them as a way to protect the beach front town from storm surges. So volunteers actually drove around picking up trees and wreaths that were placed outside because I guess these trees act as perfect sand faces. They called it, capturing wind-blown sand grains and their needles and branches and preventing the erosion of sand off the beaches. So it's kind of cool. I didn't know you could use trees for that. So if you are close to Virginia Beach, that is definitely an option for you. Chicho's local restaurant. It's a simple and effective way of just building the dunes back up after storms. So when there's like high winds and the beaches, like, I guess this just really helps. So this season, Matt Potter, who is the owner of Chicho's, is expecting to collect double the amount of trees he managed last year. There were about 500 were gathered up by the community volunteers and brought to the beaches. So up until January 16th, you can bring your trees to the oceanfront Chicho's, or if you are in the Virginia Beach area, of course, or you can, there's actually people that will go and pick them up too. You just kind of, I think you need to arrange it. But another thing that he offers is that anyone who drops off a tree can also get a large cheese pizza for $8. So go distribute your tree, get rid of it in a way that's going to help other people, help the community, help the environment, and get a really cheap pizza out of it. Can't complain with that. But I know there's lots of people who are not around Virginia Beach. So there's a million other benefits to the environment that we can do by getting rid of our trees. So I just figured out a few of them, and I thought I'd share because this is something we're all going to have to go through. So there's the wood stove. Of course, if you have a wood stove or some of your friends have a wood stove, your tree is a couple months of seasoning, and it will turn your tree into a decent source of firewood. Pine burns fast, it ignites quickly, and it creates really intense heat. And then, of course, the best part is the smell. So if you do have a wood stove or an indoor fireplace, season your tree, get it all ready, and you do have a decent amount of firewood. You might as well continue to keep using the tree that you bought, right? If you live near a pond or a lake, I thought this one was pretty cool. You can canoe out to the middle of the lake and chuck the tree into the murky depths. This actually provides great underwater habitat for fish and other underwater animals. Maybe your community might have a landfill that creates community mulch. So check that out in your community. You can go to the landfill and it gets chipped up for people's gardens. So other people can kind of reuse your tree if you don't have your own garden. So check into your community. You might have that. And then if you do have the room or kind of placement for your tree, you can replant it for later years. You could also try and find a place where you can just leave your tree and cover it in bird-friendly treats. So this is actually going to encourage the birds to build a nest in the shelter of the tree and find a place, lacking a tree cover, and the birds will appreciate the chance to like give it a home. So you can help the ecosystem, you can help the animals by distributing your tree in a proper way for the environment. And I think that's just kind of cool. We spend a lot of money on trees too, or maybe some of us go chop them down ourselves, whatever the case may be. But Christmas is over and we are trying to get rid of, the stuff that we don't need anymore for the season. So we might as well help the environment out. Or if you are around Virginia Beach, definitely go check out Chicho's restaurant, because I think that's a pretty cool thing that they do and they collect. It is time for a break, but don't go anywhere, because when we get back, I have a story about how you might be able to cure your migraines.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
We are back listening to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. So, like I said before the break, I have a story that might interest you, especially if you suffer from intense migraines. If you are one that suffers with migraines, you know that they can be completely unbearable. Some people get them way worse than others. And a lot of us who do suffer with migraines, we've tried everything. It seems like nothing can really work to relieve that pain of the migraine. There's so many different tips and tricks that people say, and, some might work for some people, but I feel like a lot of people are still really struggling with it. So when I read this story, I thought it was pretty neat. So scientists, may have found a way to relieve your migraines by going green. I know that sounds weird, but 70-year-old Arizona State resident Ann Jones has suffered for many, many years, at least about 24 a month of migraines. And she was ready to try anything short of surgery. She was always struggling to find something that works, and when she heard about this new study, she jumped right in. So she enrolled in a study to test the result of daily exposure to green LED light. Sounds weird, but 6 weeks of daily exposure to green light in a darkened room and significant reduction in symptoms have occurred. So it sounds weird because, when you have a migraine, light is very sensitive to us. But Ann Jones suffered for many years, and she enrolled in this study, and her symptoms have dropped by insane amounts just by doing this. Dr. Ibrahim, the study's principal investigator, says that 60% of patient symptoms were relieved in this testing, bringing migraine totals per month as high as 20 to 6. So there's a lot of research piling up about how physicians can use light or electronic stimuli and certain low frequency noises to manipulate your brain waves that affect the physiological change. So, such as easing your depression and causing the clearance of Alzheimer's, which is causing plaque in the brain. And so there's more and more studies about, the exposure to these different lights that can help all these things. But the idea of exposing someone with severe migraines to light seemed a little far-fetched. But they had been experimenting with green light specifically, found in animal trials that both glass lenses and external light sources in the color green were found to reduce pain responses. So they thought that they would try this study and see if it worked. So the doctor said, we basically made the conclusion that whatever effect is happening is taking place through the visual system. That's why when we recruited patients, we told them you cannot fall asleep when you're undergoing this therapy. Neurologist Levin Morris said he would welcome the treatment if it proved effective in human trials. Migraine sufferers are very sensitive to, environmental stimuli. So the idea of manipulating light to lessen headache pain is a plausible approach. Environmental stimuli is difficult to account for in scientific research, I guess. So for example, sitting in a semi-dark room, staring at a green light could be isolating the patient from other forms of stimuli that bring on the migraine, such as like sunlight or blue light from computer screens. So they thought that maybe this would work. A different clinical trial at Duke University are actually experimenting kind of with a similar thing with green light exposure, but by a wearable treatment. So they're giving their patients glasses with green lenses, which makes this like easier on lifestyle than like sitting in a dark room with an LED light for an hour a day, right? Because that kind of, that definitely interrupts our days. So there is a lot more research that needs to be done, but they are starting to prove that the exposure to the LED green light is significantly lowering people's symptoms. I do think the green glasses is a little bit more sustainable for most people's everyday life instead of just sitting in a dark room and staring at a green light for an hour, right? It's a little bit different, but this research has just begun, so I'm sure they're going to be coming up with more things, but I just thought that was really interesting because a lot of people suffer with migraines. A lot of people are trying to figure out a way around that to make it better, make it easier. My next story is a little bit of a feel-good story. If you caught my last episode, I talked a little bit about the lunch debt that is happening with a lot of students. There's a lot of students and families who are suffering with this lunch debt bills. So Justin Sears is a young boy who started a GoFundMe page. He's from Vermont. And with his GoFundMe page, his goal was to cover $600 worth of lunch debt for kids at his school. But as of Christmas Day, nearly $900 has been donated through the pages, through the GoFundMe. I guess more than 17,000 children in Vermont live in food insecure households, according to the Hunger Free Vermont. So Justin says that giving is not just about making a donation, it's about making a difference. And this will make a difference in allowing families to start fresh in the new year. As the page states, Justin added that he decided to skip a few presents in order to donate more money to the cause. So it's just another kid trying to help out his classmates by raising money. But if you did catch last episode, I did talk a lot about this lunch debt, and it's huge. There's a lot of kids struggling with it. So it's really nice to see that even kids are starting GoFundMe pages to help give families a fresh start in the new year, that they don't have to worry about that financial debt. Now, I think this next story might be my favorite one of the entire episode. So, a woman has converted a food truck into a mobile homeless shower. Yes. So, in Jackson, Mississippi, Teresa Rankenberger bought a old food truck, and she has created it into a now mobile shower for the homeless. She calls it the Shower Power Mobile Shower Unit. So the vehicle is complete with a new paint job of blue bubbles. It's really cute. It includes a privacy door, hot and cold water, body soap, shampoo, a sink, and a mirror. Right now she's doing a weekly stop to a park in downtown Jackson on Mondays, but she's planning to increase the frequency on travel to other areas. She says a lot of them don't wake up and say that they want to be homeless. It makes you think it could be me or you, but by the grace of God, it is not. So Teresa herself recalls that as she was a child, her mother was a waitress, and she lived with friends for long periods of time after her parents were divorced. And she's sure that if she wasn't for those people, she would have been in a shelter or homeless. So now she's just wanting to give back to the community to help out the homeless. And before this, she's actually never been involved in any other organization to help the homeless until this mobile shower idea. And this all came about when she saw a man pushing a wheelchair along the road, and it inspired her to make a difference and to help out. So this man's name is Benny Flowers, and about 2 years ago in the freezing cold, Teresa and her family spotted him pushing a wheelchair. So they pulled over to a store not far down and waited for him to get there. So I guess she gave him a bag of warm things and some snacks and then just like carried on with her life. About a year later, she saw him again and he recognized her. So she talked to him and asked if he had eaten anything. And then she bought him McDonald's and they started to build a friendship. And this completely sparked her idea by helping with the homeless in this way. So on the website for the mobile power shower, she said, after spending a lot of time with a homeless person who became my friend, I asked, Benny, how long has it been since you've had a shower? His response, a year, Miss Teresa. When I left Benny that day, my mind was racing. Walking up the steps to our house, the idea hit me of the need for a mobile shower unit. So the process started right away. I went back a few days later to visit Benny and told him my idea. He was so happy. He said, more than food, I need a shower. You know, because a visit to a shelter for a lot of places, it doesn't mean that you get a shower. It does mean that you can get a bed to sleep on most of the time, but that doesn't involve a shower or anything like that. So Teresa jumped to action. She bought a used truck and then she found someone who could build the showers and help her out that way. And it's pretty cool because if there is a line, then the showers are 15 minutes. But if there is no lineup, then there is no time limit. So they say that Teresa makes you feel very welcomed. She's not standoffish. She makes them feel very safe and not bad about yourself because, of course, when you know you need a shower, that is something that hurts your pride. That's hard to admit. You know, it's hard to do. But when you're in that situation, that's how it is. So there's one man that she recalls who just would not make eye contact to her. He would just like look straight down. He was dirty and gloomy and, you know, he just didn't want to really be welcomed. So the man actually showered for 40 minutes and she said that when he got out, he was completely different. His eyes were bright. He was smiling and he was saying, I could not tell you how good I feel. And it was actually just, you know, it made them both tear up and she actually gave him some clothes. And it was just like moments like that really made her sure of what she was doing. And it was just so humbling for her. So she's not stopping there. She doesn't want to pry at the people but she also just doesn't want them to just shower and leave and say goodbye because she just keeps wanting to do more and more. So she's learned that another strong need is laundry for the homeless. And so now her next plan is to get a truck with washers and dryers so that they can do that. And then another one in the future as well will be one for haircuts. So she's not stopping there, but I think it's pretty cool that, you know, an old food truck has turned into something so great to help the homeless out. And it's cool to watch people get inspired by little things and make such a difference for so many people's lives. But on that note, it is time for another break. But when we get back, I have a story about a chef that went through a gruesome accident. It's a little bit about his recovery and where he's at now. It's a pretty interesting story. So don't go anywhere.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast. You do have a story about a chef who went through a gruesome accident. He had over a dozen surgeries and an amputation that removed his left hand. His name is Chef Eduardo Garcia, but he is finally back in the kitchen. So he was an up-and-coming yacht chef before the accident in 2011. While he was hiking, he saw what he believed to be a dead bear cub in a large tin can. But when he prodded it with a hunting knife, 24,000 volts of power arched from the base of the can to his knife, and he was electrocuted. So he says that he remembers feeling the sensation of the heat and the ambient noises of the frequency being all encompassing. He opened his eyes and remembers seeing clouds and tree tops and just telling himself that he needs to get on his feet and he needs to stand up. He said that he knew that he was dying and he needed to get help. So he was walking to save his life. He did manage to survive 18 surgeries in 48 days. And then one afternoon, the doctors walked in and gave him some pretty terrible news that his left hand, where he was holding the knife, was infected and it had to be amputated. So he got his hand amputated not long after that. And of course, he's been struggling to cope with everything. And, the love of his life is cooking. All he wants to do is cook. So he had to relearn his cooking techniques. It didn't stop him. I think this story is pretty powerful for someone to push through to get what they really want. So when he got back in the kitchen finally, when he was starting his recovery with everything, he was like, how do I even hold a knife? How do I hold a piece of produce again? Because his left hand is a hook. So it's like, how do you do this? You have to learn all these things over again, in a completely different way, right? In a completely unique way that you would never even think of. But he has been successful. He says cooking has been a huge part of his healing process because it is what he loves to do the most. And it's just been obviously a huge, huge learning curve. But he now runs a company called Montana Max, which produces sauces, spices, and oils to be used in cooking. His recovery also involved a lot about learning to feel comfortable outside again, returning to hobbies like hiking and, that kind of stress from all of that. But he says, I've thought about why me, and how I was spared. Every day, basically, and if I had a complete, clean takeaway, it would only be that in the moment. I believe that I was reborn. When a baby comes into this world, it is kicking and screaming and shouting for this thing called life. So I guess in that moment of severe borderline life or death, mortgage payments, career, unread emails, all those things completely disappeared. And so now he tries to look ahead and see what could happen next in his life, career, and personal-wise. There is a pizza shop, though, in Indiana who works Christmas Day, but they let their employees work as kind of volunteers. You can just volunteer to work that day. They don't schedule you, but if you can volunteer and work, some employees will work. But each employee that opted to work on Christmas Day made over $700 in just a few hours. So, they wanted to wrap up the Christmas season, the giving back season, by giving back to their employees. So they staff their Christmas Day by volunteer basis, but at the end of the day, whichever employees work, they get to split the profits of the entire day. And I guess this year was a huge turnout. It was way more than years, and they originally were planning to be open from 4 to 9. But I guess the phones were going crazy by 3:30 when they were there prepping. And by 6:30, they had over 60 orders to make. They actually had to turn off the phones because they couldn't accept any more orders. So the Rockstar Pizza owners, that's what the place is called, they actually donate all the pizza supplies themselves to their shop that day so that they don't end up actually taking $1 of the profits from Christmas Day. They give it all to their employees, giving it all back. And then, of course, they're just happy to have their pizza delivered or have their pizza eaten by people on Christmas Day. So I thought that was a pretty nice story of giving back to your employees, because Christmas Day working is not fun. We all want to be with our family and friends, right? So thought that was pretty cool for two pizza shop owners to give back to their employees. The season of giving is definitely not ending, right? A Southern California church gave local families a little peace of mind for Christmas this year. Speaking of the giving season not ending. So they're actually wiping out more than $5 million worth of medical debt for people in their community. So in Eagle Rock, California, Christian Assembly Church raised enough money to pay off the medical debt of 5,555 struggling families in the greater Los Angeles area. So these families received letters in the mail over Christmas that their debt had been paid off. So debt paid off by the RIP Medical Debt, which is a nonprofit group that claims it has actually gotten rid of more than $1 billion in medical debt since the creation of the organization in 2014. So it specializes in helping organizations purchase debt from medical providers and debt sellers for pennies on the dollar. So this Christian Assembly Church said it collected about $50,000 in the past year, and members were unaware of how it would be used, but it was revealed for some Christmas services. So that's how they did use all the money. But they were able to eliminate $5.3 million in medical debt with the donation, benefit low-income families in 28 communities in the Los Angeles County, and help improve the crushing weight on local families' shoulders by just getting this debt away and paid off for them. So the list is private, but the 28 neighborhoods are each home to 15 or more active church members. So they did give back to their active church community, and just really relieved this crushing weight from so many local families. Gotta love the giving season. It's just so powerful. My next story is about somebody who also gave a little extra this season, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Jessa Mesa was diagnosed with lupus and told that she had 5 years to live. This was back in 2004. By 2018, she had beat those odds and also thyroid cancer as well. But she was told that she was needing a new kidney if she wanted to see her 2 young sons graduate, get married, and have children one day. She actually missed out on a donor due to some health conditions at one point, and she also put her search on pause to help her boyfriend recover from a heart attack. So she's kind of been pushing past, this search of getting a donor successfully in time. Jessie is a dispatcher for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and for her last resort, she actually sent out an email to the entire staff of 5,000 this year, basically asking for a kidney brother or sister who might consider helping her. And within an hour, Amber Savoy, who barely knew Jessie, answered her. Amber and Jessie had not much of a relationship before Amber decided to give her such an amazing gift. So Amber actually worked the night shift and Jessie worked the day shift. So they kind of always just passed by each other. They did know each other, but they were never friends. So Amber knew that Jessie had young kids and she just wanted to help her see them grow up. And so if she could help, she really wanted to. Amber says that she's just that type of person. She just wanted to help out. So it took Jessie actually over a month to even send out that email. So to get a response back in an hour of someone willing to help her, it's just amazing. And as a dispatcher, she helps others. And you don't usually ask for help yourself, is what she said, right? She's always helping others and she never asked for help herself. So when she asked for the help and received such a quick answer, she was so thankful for Amber. Amber took the next steps to what she had to do to ensure that the kidneys would work for the body. And Jessie, kept messaging Amber saying, you don't have to go through with it if you don't want to, even up to the day of the surgery. But Amber did go through with it. Everything was accepted. And now Jessie's kids are so happy to have a healthy mother. And then that builds a connection between Jessie and Amber like no other, of course. They've become very close friends already. And Jessie likes to call her Claus the kidney. She says that she just will send her a text message asking how Claus is, which I think is pretty sweet. Talking about giving back, it's never ending. I love hearing these stories, even, not just this giving back season, but that is the most beautiful present you can give somebody. It's another chance at life. So for people who barely knew each other to having a connection like no other, I thought that was really sweet. So that is all the stories that I have for you on today's episode. Thank you for listening to GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am Alyssa Joe, your host. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like and follow us on social media, and give a 5-star rating. I look forward to next time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast.